The line at Ridgeway Community Bank moved slowly, sunlight filtering through the tall glass windows and landing in soft rectangles across the polished tile floor. The lobby smelled faintly of printer ink and freshly brewed coffee from the small refreshment table near the entrance. It was late morning, busy but quiet in the way banks usually were. Every sound felt louder: the beeping of the ticket machine, the shuffle of papers, the murmur of polite voices. Daniel Wright stepped forward in line. He was 36, dressed simply but sharply. Dark slacks, a neatly pressed shirt, a worn leather briefcase in his hand. His presence was calm, composed. The kind of steadiness that didn't demand attention but earned it. He had spent years building that steadiness, brick by brick. The teller window opened and the next customer stepped aside. Daniel approached. The teller, Amanda, glanced up with a quick professional smile that slipped almost instantly into something tighter, more hesitant. Her eyes flicked from Daniel's face to his briefcase, then to his clothes. Not shabby, not flashy, just not what she expected in a place where status was often assumed before it was known. "Good morning," Daniel said politely as he placed his ID and a bank slip on the counter. "I'd like to withdraw $25,000 from my account, please." Amanda blinked, just once. Her smile returned, but thinner, held together by habit rather than warmth. "Of course," she said, typing slowly. "Can I ask the purpose of the withdrawal?" Daniel nodded. He was used to procedure, used to questions. "I'm moving funds for a property acquisition." Amanda's fingers paused on the keyboard. She didn't look at him, just at the number in the system. Her brows pulled together. This account is showing a balance of..." She hesitated, then her tone changed, sharper, more suspicious. "Sir, are you sure this is your account?" Daniel's posture didn't shift, not a flicker. "Yes, that's my account. I've banked here for years." Amanda forced a professional tone, but her eyes told another story, one that came from a place she didn't question because she didn't have to. "Right. It's just, you understand why we ask. Most customers don't keep this kind of balance in checking. This kind. Not large, not unusual, not unexpected. This kind." Daniel understood exactly what she meant. He had heard it before, in different words, in different rooms. "It's okay," he said simply. "You can verify the account?" Amanda nodded, already flustered. She clicked through screens, then stood abruptly. Please wait here. I'll need to confirm this with the branch manager." She walked quickly across the lobby, whispering to Mark, the manager. A man in his early 50s with a crisp navy suit and a practiced corporate smile. Mark glanced at Daniel, then at the computer screen, then back at Daniel again. They didn't see him. They saw a possibility that made no sense to them. Mark approached the counter. "Mr. Wright, correct?" he asked, tone polite but edged with disbelief. "Yes," Daniel said. "We just need to verify the balance manually. You understand? It's protocol for large withdrawals." Daniel nodded once. He wasn't angry. He wasn't surprised. Protocol wasn't the problem. Assumption was. Customers nearby began to watch, just subtly enough to pretend they weren't. The lobby's soft hum thinned into something quieter, something heavier, something familiar to Daniel, but invisible to everyone else. Minutes passed. The verification completed, and the result was undeniable. Mark's expression shifted dramatically. His posture straightened. His voice lost its cool distance. "Mr. Wright," he said, now overly courteous, "you have more than enough to make this withdrawal. I apologize for the delay. Would you like the funds transferred to a cashier's check, or will you take them in cash?" Daniel met his gaze evenly. "Cashier's check is fine. Thank you." Amanda's face was red now, embarrassment creeping into her cheeks. She didn't apologize. She didn't speak. Daniel didn't need her to. He simply picked up the check when it was ready and placed his ID back into his wallet. But before he walked away, he paused, not dramatic, not loud, just present. "I hope in the future," he said quietly, "the assumptions you make about people start where they are, not where you expect them to be." He didn't wait for a response. He walked toward the glass doors, briefcase in hand, calm as ever. Behind him, the branch was silent, not from awe, from realization. They had treated him like he didn't belong. Soon, they would learn he had come here not to withdraw money, but to save the entire branch from closing. And they had no idea. Yet. 2 days later, the atmosphere inside Ridgeway Community Bank was different. Not outwardly, but in the subtle, humming way a place changes when people sense that something is unfolding just beyond their understanding. The staff didn't know yet, of course, but rumors had already begun to circulate. The corporate office had been reviewing the branch's performance for months, and this location had been on the verge of closure due to declining community engagement and outdated financial outreach strategies. No one had said the words out loud, but everyone felt it. A shutdown was coming. The tension sat in the walls like humidity. Around 10:30 a.m., the glass doors opened, and Daniel Wright walked in, not in dress casual, not holding a withdrawal slip, but in a tailored charcoal suit, shoulders squared, calm, and assured. He wasn't carrying a briefcase this time. He was carrying a folder embossed with the name Wright Investments Group, LLC. He didn't wait in line. He didn't need to. The corporate liaison, Ms. Gupta, immediately recognized him from the lobby as she reviewed documents with the branch manager. She approached him with a professional warmth that was genuine, not performative. "Mr. Wright," she said with a nod, "thank you for coming. We've prepared a private office for the evaluation." The word evaluation landed like a stone in a still pond. The staff exchanged quick glances, confused, curious. Amanda, the teller from before, froze mid-transaction when she saw him. She didn't speak, but her face said everything. Why is he back? Daniel simply nodded and followed Ms. Gupta down the hallway and into the conference room. Mark, the branch manager, was already inside, back straight, suit jacket buttoned, polite smile in place but stretched too thin. He stood and extended his hand. "Mr. Wright, I wasn't aware you'd be consulting on this review." Consulting? The word hung in the air. Ms. Gupta corrected him gently. "Not consulting," she said. "Leading. Mr. Wright is the primary private investor being considered to acquire the branch and restructure its operations. If he approves the evaluation, the branch will remain open." Silence. Heavy. Meaningful. Mark blinked, shock tightening every line in his face, because in that moment, the truth clicked into place. The man he had patronized, doubted, treated like an inconvenience, was the one in the position to save his job, and everyone else's. Daniel took his seat calmly, opening the folder and arranging documents with practiced ease. His movements were unhurried, controlled, confident. He had been preparing for opportunities like this his entire life. Mark cleared his throat, searching for words. "Mr. Wright, we didn't know." Daniel met his eyes, steady, courteous, unwavering. "That's the point," he said quietly. "You didn't ask. You assumed. No anger, no edge, just truth delivered with precision." Ms. Gupta began reviewing financial performance data, operational inefficiencies, community demographic shifts. All things Daniel had already studied, charted, planned. As he spoke about revitalizing local engagement, supporting small businesses, and modernizing services to better serve everyone, even Mark couldn't deny it. Daniel understood not just money, but community. And he cared about this neighborhood in a way this bank had forgotten to. Through the glass wall of the conference room, Amanda stood at her counter, watching, face pale, eyes wide, as she realized exactly who she had dismissed. Daniel wasn't here for revenge. He was here to build something better. But every person in that bank now understood something unmistakable. They had misjudged a man who could decide the future of their entire careers. And the story was only beginning. When the meeting concluded, Ms. Gupta collected her files, satisfied. The acquisition wasn't final yet, but it was close. Close enough that everyone in the room could feel momentum shifting. Mark stood quickly, almost too quickly, straightening his suit jacket again, trying to recover authority he no longer held. He opened his mouth once, maybe to apologize, maybe to smooth over the past. But Daniel simply nodded to him, a gesture that stopped the words where they were. There was no need for explanations now. Daniel walked out of the conference room with the same unhurried calm he'd had when he arrived. His steps were steady, purposeful. The lobby grew quieter the moment he approached, as though the entire room held its breath. Customers noticed the change first, then the staff. Amanda froze where she stood behind the teller counter, hands hovering above the keyboard. Her last conversation with him replayed in her mind. The doubt, the tone, the tiny insults wrapped in professionalism. Her mouth went dry. Daniel stopped in front of her window. He didn't smile, he didn't glare. He simply looked at her with the clear, even expression of a man who knew exactly who he was and had nothing to prove. "Good morning, Amanda," he said, voice calm. She swallowed. "Mr. Wright, I didn't realize." Daniel nodded once. "I know." A simple acknowledgement. Not cruel, not forgiving, just honest. "I want to be very clear," he continued quietly, but not softly. Everyone nearby could hear him. "Your job was never to know my bank balance, my business holdings, or my role here. Your job was simply to treat me with professionalism and respect. The amount of money in my account did not change who I was." Amanda's eyes stung. She blinked hard, her throat tight. "Respect," he said, "should be the starting point, not something earned after verification." The words weren't loud, but they were the kind that didn't leave a room once spoken. Amanda nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "You're right. I'm truly sorry." Daniel held her gaze for a moment longer, then offered a small nod. Not acceptance, not rejection, just acknowledgement. Then he turned to the rest of the lobby. "Ridgeway Bank has the potential to serve this community in ways that matter," he said. "Not as a speech, just as truth. But that means this place must reflect the people who walk through its doors. All of them." The staff stood still, taking in every word. No one dared interrupt. Across the lobby, Mark stepped forward, shoulders tense but eyes clearer than before. "Mr. Wright," he began carefully, "if the acquisition moves forward, I can assure you that—" Daniel didn't let him finish. "Not assure me," Daniel said evenly. "Assure your community." Mark closed his mouth slowly, because now he understood. This wasn't about one man being underestimated in a lobby. This was about whether this bank would continue to belong to the community it was built to serve. Daniel took one last look around, at the counters, the waiting chairs, the faces, people who had watched him as a customer and now watched him as something they could not have imagined, the man who could save them. And he walked out, leaving silence behind him. Not uncomfortable silence. Transformational silence. The kind that comes just before a place begins to change. 3 weeks later, the entire staff of Ridgeway Community Bank gathered in the lobby. The blinds had been raised to let the sun pour in, the counters were polished, the floors newly waxed. The air hummed with low conversations, nervous, tentative, hopeful. Everyone knew today was decision day. Would their branch close? Would they all be forced to transfer, relocate, or lose their jobs? Or would someone, save them? Mark stood near the podium the corporate office had set up. He wore the same navy suit, but it didn't feel like armor anymore. It looked like something he was trying to grow back into. Amanda stood a few steps away, hands clasped in front of her. She looked tired, not from work, but from reflection. At exactly 10 the front doors opened. Daniel Wright walked in. This time, no one looked past him. No one tried to guess who he was. They knew. Ms. Gupta followed behind him, carrying a single folder marked Final Agreement. She stepped to the front. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience throughout the evaluation process. After full financial and strategic review, we are pleased to announce that Ridgeway Community Bank has secured a private capital partnership and will remain open, under new operational leadership." A slow wave of breath moved through the room, relief heavy and real. But Ms. Gupta wasn't finished. "This acquisition and revitalization will be led by Mr. Daniel Wright." She stepped aside. Daniel didn't move to the podium. He didn't need the height. His presence alone was steady and anchored. He simply took one step forward. "Ridgeway Bank has served this neighborhood for over 40 years, he began. But somewhere along the line, it stopped seeing the people who came through its doors. It forgot who it was built for. No one spoke, not one sound. This branch doesn't need flash. It doesn't need to chase wealth. It needs to rebuild trust. And that starts with how we treat every single person who walks in here. No assumptions, no judgment, no dividing people into valued or questionable customers. A few staff members lowered their heads, not in shame, in recognition. Daniel continued, "Every person deserves dignity. Every person deserves respect. That's the standard, beginning today." He didn't look at Amanda directly, but she felt seen in a way she hadn't expected. Seen not as a villain, but as someone who could change. Her voice was quiet when it came. "Mr. Wright, I want to do better. I will." Daniel nodded. A small, real nod. "Good, because the future of this branch depends on it." Then Mark stepped forward. No script, no corporate smile. "Daniel, I misjudged you," he said, voice rough with honesty. "And I misjudged what leadership is supposed to look like. I'd like to earn the chance to do better under your direction." The room held still. Daniel didn't drag out the moment. He didn't humiliate him. He didn't make him beg. "We move forward," he said simply. "We learn. We match our words with our actions. That's enough." Relief spread through the staff, not because they were spared consequences, but because they were offered a better way forward. Daniel turned, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed now. "This branch isn't being saved because of me," he said. "It's being saved because it belongs to this community. So we're going to serve it with respect, transparency, and dignity. And we're going to do it together." The room filled, not with applause, but with purpose, the kind that sticks, the kind that changes people. And as Daniel walked the staff through new plans, new outreach efforts, and new training, not one person looked at him the way they had before. Not as a customer, not as a balance to verify, not as an outsider, but as the leader he always was. Summer arrived slowly in Ridgeway, the kind of summer that warmed the pavement and softened the edges of the city. The bank no longer felt tense or heavy when people walked in. The lobby sounded different now, lighter, more human. Customers were greeted by name. Conversations weren't rushed. The space that once smelled of old paper and stress now hummed with quiet purpose. Change didn't happen overnight, but it was happening. Daniel visited the branch regularly, not to hover, but to build. He sat with the loan officers, listened to longtime customers, hosted outreach meetings with small business owners in the community room that had once collected dust. He replaced the old corporate posters with art by local students. He funded free financial literacy workshops every Saturday morning, and he never asked for credit. But people noticed anyway. One afternoon, the door swung open and a man in his late 50s entered. Work-worn hands, oil stains on his cuffs, exhaustion in his posture. He looked around awkwardly as though expecting to be told he didn't belong. Amanda stepped forward. No hesitation, no forced smile. "Hi there," she said warmly. "What can we help you with today?" The man hesitated. His voice was rough when he finally spoke. I own Ray's Auto down on Pine. I've been trying to get a small loan to keep the shop open. Every place I tried either denied me or wanted collateral I don't have. Someone told me this branch might listen. Amanda didn't say we don't do that. She didn't ask for proof first. She didn't look him up and down like he was a question needing validation. She said, "Let's sit down and talk. We'll see what we can do." Not a guarantee, just respect. Daniel, who was finishing a meeting at a nearby desk, heard the conversation and approached with the same calm presence he always carried. "Ray Johnson," Daniel said with a small smile. "My dad used to bring his truck to your shop when I was a kid." Ray blinked, surprised. "Your dad was Samuel Wright?" Daniel nodded. "Yes. And I remember him saying, 'You were the kind of man who fixed things the right way, not the quick way.'" Ray swallowed hard, emotion tightening his voice. "Times got tougher. People go to dealerships now. Hard to keep up." Daniel gestured for him to sit. "We can help, but we're not just giving you a loan. We're going to help you build a plan to bring customers back. Community businesses support communities, and we support them." Amanda watched from across the table. And for the first time since their first uncomfortable encounter, she understood fully what Daniel had been teaching. Dignity was not something earned. It was something given. Ray left that day not with a signed loan agreement, but with something far more valuable. Someone finally believing he was worth one. Weeks passed. The loan was approved. Ray's Auto reopened with new marketing support and financial structure. Customers began returning, and every time someone in the neighborhood talked about how the shop was saved, Daniel didn't take credit. He always said the same thing: people just need to be seen. One evening after the lobby closed and the lights dimmed, Daniel stood near the large window overlooking the street. Cars passed in slow swells. The sun dipped behind the buildings, gilding everything in soft gold. Amanda approached him, not timidly but sincerely. "Mr. Wright," she said, "I want to thank you, not just for the second chance, but for showing me how to be better than I was." Daniel didn't turn right away. He waited a moment, then looked at her. "We all carry assumptions," he said. "The question is whether we choose to keep them or learn past them." Amanda nodded. This time she didn't cry. She stood taller instead. "You taught this whole branch more in a month than I've learned in years," she said quietly. Daniel smiled, not wide, but real. "That's because change doesn't start with policy," he replied. "It starts with people." They stood there a moment longer, watching the street, the neighborhood, the living place this bank now served. Not from above, but with. Ridgeway Community Bank didn't need to be saved from closure. It needed to be reconnected to its community. And Daniel Wright did exactly that. Not by being the richest person in the room, but by refusing to let anyone be invisible.